Now, thank you. So if this was your triangle and I have to find the side, I would use Socahtoa. Anytime you're trying to find the side, you must decide, do you use sine, cos, or tan? To do that, you must name the sides. If this is my angle, what side is that? The opposite. And what side is this? Hypotenuse. So because it's opposite and hypotenuse, I use sine. I write down that the sine is equal to the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. The sine of 30 degrees is equal to the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. 12 is a divisor, what will it become? 12 times the sine of 30 degrees is equal to x. 12 times the sine of 30 degrees on your calculator is 0.5. And 12 times 0.5 is 6. So that side would be 6. Now, how would you find the other side? Pythagoras' theorem. And how would you find the other angle? They all add up to 180 degrees in a triangle. So now you have everything. Look at this triangle. That was the case. And I had to find that side. I can't use Pythagoras' theorem. Do you understand that? Why not? I've only one side. So Pythagoras' theorem requires two sides. So if it's not Pythagoras' theorem, how do you solve it? Socahtoa. Now, anytime you use Socahtoa, you must decide, do you use the sine, the cos, or the tan? And the way you decide that is you name the sides. So if I'm talking about this angle, what side is that there? The adjacent. And what side is this here? Hypotenuse. And when you use adjacent and hypotenuse, you must use what? Cosine. So I'll write down that the cosine is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. The cosine of what angle? 40 degrees. Is the adjacent y all over the hypotenuse? 19. 19 is a divisor. What will it become? 19 times the cosine of 40 degrees is equal to y. 19 times the cosine of 40 degrees, 0.766, is equal to y. And what's 19 times 0.766? 14.55. Have you any questions? (45.28 degrees). Is that the same as 35 degrees and 28 minutes? No. All right, it is not. 12 and z. If I want to find z, it's not Pythagoras' theorem, so what does it have to be? Socahtoa. And any time you're going to use Socahtoa, your first question is to decide, do you use the sine, the cos, or the tan? And what tells you that? The sides. So the first thing you must do when you're doing this is you must go and name your side. Then it's what side? The opposite. Good. Yeah. No. Yes. It is here. It is here. Yes. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Well done. And okay. we'll do more interesting things here. So I have to name the sides. What side is that there? The opposite. And what side is this here? Adjacent. So the opposite and the adjacent means I must use what? Tan. So I'd start off by saying tan is equal to the opposite divided by the adjacent. The tan of which angle? 35.28 degrees is equal to the opposite, Z all over 12. 12 is a divisor, what will become? 12 times the tan of 35.28 degrees is equal to Z. 12 times, what's the tan of 35.28? 7? Oh, 7. And what's 12 times that? 8 point is equal to Z. Now, there's nothing else to it except this. In each one of those, when I had the fraction, the unknown was on the top of the fraction. Yes? And all I had to say is that divisor does what? Becomes a multiplier. And what did I say that divisor becomes? And this divisor becomes a? Right. What happens if the unknown is the other way around? And that's a little bit more tricky mathematically, but every one of them would be the same. Right angled triangle, 52 degrees. 7 and x. Right? So it's Socahtoa. And anytime I use Socahtoa, and I know I've said this, I don't know how many times at this stage, you must decide whether you use sine, cos, or tan. Now what will tell you whether you use sine, cos, or tan? The sides. What side is that? The opposite. And what side is this? Opposite and hypotenuse? Sine. So the sine is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. The sine of 52 degrees is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. Where is my unknown now ended up? On the bottom. So this is a more difficult. People will make mistakes here, whereas the previous page, all the unknowns were on the top. They get them right. This x is a multiplier. If I bring it over, what would it become? This x is a divisor. If I brought it over, what would it become? X times the sine of 52 degrees is equal to 7. So what's x equal to? 7. That's a multiplier. What would it become? Divided by the sine of 52 degrees, which is 7 divided by 0 point. What's the sine of 52? Sorry? 7? That's it? Which is equal to, what's 7 divided by 0.788? Now please look at this question. I knew the opposite was 7. I knew x, my hypotenuse, had to be what? Greater than 7. Do you understand that I knew that? Because the hypotenuse is what side? Now you have to keep thinking like that when you're doing these questions. That way you'll have a fair idea of what the answer is. $53 degrees, 26 minutes. Is that the same as 53.26 degrees? And as long as you understand that, that's important for me. 15x. Right. So how will I solve that? Socahtoa. Anytime I use Socahtoa, I must decide as a sign causer. To do that, I name the sides. What side is that? Opposite. And what side is that? Adjacent. Opposite and adjacent? Tan. I would now say that the tan is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. The tan of which angle? 53 degrees 26 minutes is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. I have to find x. X is a divisor. Bring it over, what will it become? X times the tan of 53 degrees 26 minutes is equal to 15. That's a multiplier. When I bring it over, what would it become? X is equal to 15 divided by the tan of 53 degrees and 26 minutes, which is 15 divided by what you say? And that'll be 1.348. And what's 15 divided by that? 11.12. Have you any questions about those? It looks like we have some fine gentlemen after coming